Good morning/afternoon, everyone. Have you ever wondered what truly drives our choices, our emotions, our happiness, and our struggles? What if, in just 21 minutes, we could uncover the psychological blueprint of what it means to live, and to live well? Today, I invite you on a short journey through the fascinating lens of psychology to understand life, not as a mystery to be solved, but as a pattern to be appreciated. Let's explore 5 key ideas that can help us make sense of this beautiful, complex experience we call life. Our lives are not shaped by events, but by how we perceive them. Psychology teaches us that the brain doesn't see reality, it interprets it. 2 people can experience the same moment, yet walk away with completely different stories. The lesson: our mindset matters more than our circumstances. By training our minds to focus on growth instead of failure, and on gratitude instead of lack, we begin to rewrite our internal narrative, and that changes everything. Emotions are not enemies to suppress. They are signals to understand. Anger tells us our boundaries were crossed. Fear warns us of danger. Joy reminds us of what gives life meaning. In psychology, emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our emotions, is one of the strongest predictors of success and fulfillment. When we listen to our emotions rather than fight them, we discover what truly drives us. Human beings are wired for connection. From the moment we're born, our brains seek safety and meaning through relationships. Studies in social psychology show that genuine human connection is one of the greatest predictors of happiness and even longevity. Life explained through this lens becomes simple. We are not meant to do it alone. The quality of our relationships defines the quality of our lives. We often believe we control life, our plans, our future, our success. But psychology reminds us that uncertainty is not the enemy. It's the essence of growth. Acceptance and commitment therapy teaches us that instead of fighting what we can't control, we should focus on aligning our actions with our values. When we stop demanding certainty and start embracing adaptability, we find peace even in chaos. Viktor Frankl, a psychologist and Holocaust survivor, once said, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." Meaning is the foundation of psychological resilience. When we connect our actions to a larger purpose, whether it's love, creativity, service, or discovery, life becomes more than survival. It becomes a story worth living. So, if life could be explained in 21 minutes, psychology would tell us this: perception shapes our world. Emotions guide our journey. Connection gives us strength. Letting go of control gives us peace. And meaning gives us direction. Imagine 2 people standing in the rain. One person grumbles, complaining about how the day is ruined, while the other lifts their face toward the sky and smiles, saying, "It's just water and the flowers needed it." Same rain. 2 completely different experiences. This simple example captures one of psychology's most profound truths. Our lives are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we interpret what happens to us. That is the power of perception. Perception is the lens through which we view the world. It is not just about what our eyes see or ears hear. It's about how our brain organizes, interprets, and assigns meaning to that information. The fascinating thing is that perception isn't a passive process. It's active, creative, and deeply personal. Each of us walks around with our own mental filter, shaped by our past experiences, emotions, beliefs, and expectations. Psychologists often say that we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. This idea was explored by cognitive psychologist Albert Ellis, who developed rational emotive behavior therapy REBT. He explained that it's not events themselves that disturb us, but our beliefs about those events. For example, failing an exam doesn't inherently make someone miserable. It's the thought, I'm a failure and I'll never succeed, that creates suffering. Change the thought, and the emotional outcome changes too. Neuroscience backs this up. The brain doesn't simply record reality like a camera. It constructs it. Our sensory input, sight, sound, touch, is only part of the story. The brain constantly fills in the blanks, predicting and interpreting based on memory and expectation. That's why two people can witness the same situation, a conversation, a breakup, a job interview, and walk away with completely different understandings of what happened. Their brains are telling two different stories. Perception also has a powerful influence on motivation and resilience. Consider the concept of the growth mindset introduced by psychologist Dweck. She found that individuals who view challenges as opportunities to grow, rather than threats to their identity, are more likely to persevere and succeed. In other words, they perceive difficulty as a teacher, not an enemy. The event itself, failure, rejection, or struggle, is neutral. It's our perception that decides whether it becomes a setback or a stepping stone. Let's bring this into real life. Think about an athlete who loses a major game. One perception might be, I'm terrible and I let everyone down. Another might be, this loss shows me where I need to improve. Same event. Two entirely different emotional worlds, one leading to despair, the other to determination. And it's not just in performance or achievement. Perception shapes our happiness too. Research in positive psychology consistently shows that people who practice gratitude perceive their lives as more fulfilling, not because they have more, but because they see more. They notice small joys, a smile from a stranger, a warm meal, a quiet morning. Their brains are trained to focus on abundance rather than absence. But let's be clear. Perception isn't about denial or pretending everything is perfect. It's not toxic positivity. It's about balance, the ability to see reality clearly, while also recognizing that our interpretation of it gives us power. When something painful happens, we have two choices: to see it as punishment or as a possibility for growth. One mindset leaves us stuck, the other moves us forward. Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, expressed this beautifully in Man's Search for Meaning. Even in the darkest human conditions, he discovered that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Frankl's insight was not just philosophical, it was psychological truth. The freedom to choose how we perceive a situation is what allows us to find purpose, even in suffering. In modern psychology, mindfulness builds on this idea. Mindfulness trains us to observe our perceptions, to see how our thoughts and judgments color reality. Instead of reacting impulsively, we learn to pause and ask, is what I'm perceiving true, or is it just my interpretation? That small moment of awareness can transform our relationships, reduce anxiety, and create emotional freedom. So, what does all this mean for life? It means that while we may not control what happens, we always control the meaning we assign to it. We can't choose the weather, but we can choose how we walk through the storm. We can't erase pain, but we can decide whether it breaks us or builds us. Our perception is our power, When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at truly begin to change. And in that shift from reaction to reflection, from fear to curiosity, life itself begins to unfold differently. Because the truth is, life doesn't happen to us. It happens through us, shaped moment by moment by the lens of our perception. Imagine waking up one morning feeling a strange heaviness in your chest. There's no obvious reason. Nothing catastrophic has happened, yet something feels off. Most of us would brush it away, bury ourselves in distractions, or label it as a bad mood. But what if that emotion was trying to tell you something? What if it was a message from your inner self, a compass pointing you towards something important? Psychology teaches us that emotions are not weaknesses or flaws to be fixed. They are signals to be understood. They act as the language of the soul, guiding, warning, and reminding us of what matters most. When we ignore our emotions, we lose direction. When we learn to listen to them, they can lead us toward clarity, resilience, and purpose. For centuries, Western culture taught us to separate logic from emotion, to value reason and suppress feeling. Yet modern psychology and neuroscience have revealed that emotions are not the opposite of rationality. They are essential partners in decision making and survival. Antonio Damasio, a neuroscientist, discovered that patients with brain injuries that prevented them from feeling emotion couldn't make even simple choices. They could list the pros and cons of a situation endlessly, but they couldn't decide what to do. Why? Because emotions give meaning to information. They tell us what matters. Think about fear. At first glance, fear seems negative, something we should conquer or avoid. But fear, at its core, is a survival mechanism. It tells us when to be cautious, when something threatens our safety or values. Without fear, we'd walk into danger without hesitation. The problem isn't fear itself. It's when fear takes control instead of guiding us. Emotional intelligence, one of psychology's most influential concepts, is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage these feelings rather than being controlled by them. Daniel Goleman, who popularized the term emotional intelligence, found that success in life depends far more on our emotional awareness than on our IQ. People with high emotional intelligence can read their own emotions and those of others, communicate effectively, and respond rather than react. They know that emotions are data, not directions. Feeling angry doesn't mean you must lash out. It means something important needs attention, maybe a boundary, a value, or an unmet need. Consider anger. Many people see anger as destructive, but it can also be constructive. It can drive social change, help us stand up for ourselves, or motivate us to correct injustice. The key lies in how we channel it. When we pause and ask, "What is my anger trying to protect?" we turn an impulse into insight. Sadness, too, serves a purpose. It slows us down, encouraging reflection, empathy, and connection. When we grieve, we honor what we've lost. When we feel disappointment, we realign our expectations. Sadness deepens our capacity to care. In fact, studies in emotional psychology show that acknowledging sadness can actually improve long-term well-being. Suppressing it, on the other hand, often leads to emotional exhaustion or depression. Then there's joy, the emotion we chase most, but often misunderstand. Joy isn't constant excitement or pleasure. It's a quiet sense of alignment, the feeling that life, even with its imperfections, makes sense for a moment. Joy arises not from external achievement, but from presence, from gratitude, creativity, and connection. It's a signal that we're living in harmony with our authentic selves. One of the most powerful lessons in psychology is that emotions are temporary. Every feeling has a beginning, middle, and end. When we resist emotions, they linger. When we allow them to move through us, to rise, peak, and fade, we experience freedom. Mindfulness practices teach us to surf the wave of emotion rather than drowning in it. This approach doesn't deny feeling, it observes it with compassion. Instead of saying, "I am angry," we can say, "I am feeling anger." That small shift reminds us that emotions visit us. They don't define us. In relationships, understanding emotions is even more crucial. When we empathize, when we tune into someone else's emotional state, we create connection and trust. Empathy is the bridge between hearts. It tells another person, "I see you. I understand." Without it, relationships become transactional. With it, they become transformative. Social psychologists have found that the simple act of validating another person's emotions, saying, "That sounds really hard," instead of "Don't feel that way," can de-escalate conflict and foster healing. In the grand scheme of life, emotions are like an internal compass guiding us toward authenticity. They tell us when something aligns with our values and when it doesn't. Anxiety might signal that we're out of balance. Excitement might point us toward growth. Regret might remind us to act differently next time. If we stop judging emotions as good or bad and start seeing them as information, we can use them to navigate life more wisely. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed, pause. Instead of asking, "How do I get rid of this feeling?" ask, "What is this feeling trying to tell me?" Maybe your anger is asking you to set a boundary. Maybe your sadness is inviting you to rest. Maybe your joy is encouraging you to stay present. Emotions are not distractions from life. They are life. They are the colors that give our experiences depth and meaning. To live fully is not to feel only happiness, but to embrace the full spectrum of human emotion. Each one a message, each one a compass point on the map of the soul. When we learn to read that map with compassion and curiosity, we stop fearing our emotions and start following them home. From the moment we are born, connection is as vital to our survival as food and water. A newborn baby instinctively reaches out to grasp a caregiver's finger. That touch, that small moment of contact, is not just comforting, it's life-sustaining. Psychology calls this the need to belong, and it's one of the most fundamental human drives. The science of connection explores how relationships shape our mental, emotional, and even physical health. Social psychologists like Abraham Maslow and John Bowlby emphasize that love and belonging are essential needs, not luxuries. Bowlby's attachment theory showed that early emotional bonds between infants and caregivers form the foundation for how we connect throughout life. Secure attachments create confidence and trust. Insecure ones can lead to fear of rejection or avoidance of intimacy. In other words, the way we learn to connect in childhood echoes in every relationship we build as adults. Neuroscience supports this too. When we interact meaningfully with others, our brains release oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone. It reduces stress, strengthens empathy, and fosters a sense of safety. Connection literally changes our brain chemistry. Studies have even shown that people with strong social networks live longer, recover faster from illness, and experience lower rates of depression and anxiety. The heart and mind both thrive when we feel seen, understood, and valued. But in our modern world, genuine connection is under threat. We have more digital friends than ever, yet loneliness is rising globally. Social media gives us constant contact, but not constant closeness. The psychology of connection reminds us that it's not the number of interactions that matter, it's their quality. A 5-minute conversation filled with empathy and presence nourishes us far more than hours of superficial scrolling. Empathy lies at the core of true connection. It's the ability to step into another person's emotional world and say, "I understand." Psychologists describe empathy as both emotional and cognitive, feeling what others feel and understanding why they feel it. When we listen deeply, without judgment or the urge to fix, we create a safe space where others can be authentic. This simple act of understanding can heal isolation, conflict, and even trauma. Connection is also a mirror. Through others, we learn who we are. Our friends, families, and communities reflect back our strengths and blind spots. Relationships challenge us to grow, to forgive, and to love despite imperfection. In this way, connection becomes not just emotional nourishment, but psychological evolution. We develop empathy, patience, and resilience through the give and take of human bonds. At its heart, the science of connection teaches us a profound truth. We are not meant to do life alone. Isolation dims the spirit, connection lights it. Every kind word, every shared laugh, every act of understanding strengthens the invisible web that holds humanity together. When we reach out, not for attention, but for understanding, we don't just help others feel whole. We heal ourselves too. In the end, connection is not just a social habit. It is our deepest human nature. We are, as psychology reminds us, wired to belong. And when we nurture those bonds with empathy, compassion, and authenticity, we rediscover one of life's simplest, most powerful truths. Together, we are stronger, healthier, and more alive. If life were a recipe, meaning would be the final, essential ingredient, the one that transforms ordinary existence into something extraordinary. Without meaning, success feels hollow, relationships lose depth, and even happiness becomes fleeting. Psychology teaches us that human beings are not simply driven by pleasure or achievement. We are driven by purpose. We need to believe that our lives matter, that our struggles have significance, and that our actions contribute to something larger than ourselves. One of the most profound explorations of meaning comes from Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. In his book Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how." Even in the unimaginable suffering of concentration camps, he observed that those who held on to a sense of purpose, a loved one to live for, a dream to fulfill, or faith in a greater truth, were more likely to survive emotionally and spiritually. His insight laid the foundation for logotherapy, a branch of psychology centered on the human need for meaning. But what exactly is meaning? It's not a single revelation or a grand destiny. Meaning is the sense that our lives are coherent, purposeful, and significant. Psychologist Michael Steger describes meaning as having three components: comprehension, purpose, and significance. Comprehension gives us a sense of understanding, the ability to make sense of our experiences, even painful ones. Purpose gives us direction, a reason to wake up and move forward each day. Significance gives us value, the feeling that our existence makes a difference. Meaning doesn't eliminate suffering, but it transforms it. When we understand that pain can have purpose, that it can teach, strengthen, or connect us, we begin to endure it differently. This idea is echoed in positive psychology. particularly in the work of Martin Seligman. He argues that happiness derived from pleasure is temporary, but meaning-based happiness, what he calls eudaimonic well-being, leads to lasting fulfillment. In essence, joy grows when we invest ourselves in something that outlives us. For some, meaning is found in faith or spirituality. For others, in creativity, service, love, or discovery. A teacher finds meaning in shaping young minds. A parent finds it in nurturing the next generation. An artist finds it in expressing truth through beauty. Meaning is deeply personal, yet universally essential. It reminds us that our small acts ripple outward: a kind word, a helping hand, a moment of courage, each adds to the fabric of humanity. Psychology also reveals that meaning is not found once and kept forever. It evolves. What gives purpose at 20 may differ from what fulfills us at 50. Life's transitions, loss, failure, success, aging invite us to re-examine and renew our sense of purpose. The search itself becomes part of the meaning. In the end, meaning is what turns existence into experience and survival into growth. It is the thread that connects our joys and sorrows, weaving them into a story that makes sense. When we live with meaning, we stop asking, "What do I want from life?" and start asking, "What does life want from me?" That shift from seeking to giving, from existing to contributing, is where true fulfillment lies. Meaning is not the end of life's journey. It is the essence that gives every step its worth.